So, welcome everyone to another podcast of Lighthouse Ventures. We are so excited that you're here with us today. Our goal with this podcast is really to shed light on real estate and how you can get started. I know that everybody's talking about real estate as being a great hedge to protect their money right now, especially while we're seeing so much inflation and interest rates going up, and people really don't know where they can put their capital to preserve it. And that's why we love real estate even more. And so today's guest is Hilary Graves. Hilary and I came to know one another at the beginning of this year. I'm really excited to be working with her. She's part of my team, and she is a very well-known sound producer or musician. And I can't wait for you to hear more about her story and where she's been and where she's going. And with that, let's just turn it over to you, Hilary. I'm really excited to have you today. Welcome.
Jennifer, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, great. Well, so as I mentioned, you're a songwriter, producer, is that correct? And a musician and a music teacher?
I'm all of those things. You got it. Usually I say music is my life, and that's very true. It's like family, music, real estate. That's kind of how it goes.
I love it. Well, it's great to have a passion outside of real estate. I know real estate can be all consuming. And so it's great that you have another life. And one thing I'm trying to shed light on for a lot of our listeners is that you actually can have another job while you're doing real estate. And so many people do. And so many people talk about, hey, get into real estate and you can quit in 2 years. But I always think, well, why give up a really great career in something if you still love it? And obviously you love what you do. You just also happen to have another passion for real estate. So tell us, how did you become acquainted with real estate? Who opened your eyes to real estate in the beginning?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to say, it offers cash flow. You can make money while legally avoiding paying taxes. And like you said, it's a hedge against inflation. And those are not the reasons we got into it, although those are all true. But we actually got in because a suggestion from a friend, a neighbor of ours, who, unbeknownst to us, was already holding a bunch of apartments and had another job. And one day he came by, and my husband has turned our garage into a wood shop. Okay. He can make anything, build anything, fix anything. He's that kind of guy. And I think it was that aspect of our lives that, we're always building and like putting up walls and, making cornhole boards and all of this, that gave our friend this idea that my husband would be good at managing apartments and fixing them up and taking care of them. And he's like, you should do what I do. Like, you would be the guy who puts in the fan, and you could even put in the floors. You wouldn't even have to hire anybody. And, this was before we knew anything about it. And we thought, okay, that sounds great. But why would we want that headache? That just sounds like that doesn't even sound like fun. But then he said, our real estate has paid for our car and our vacations and, my motorcycle and da, 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 da. And so that got our attention. And we stored that little nugget up here. But I think that, at that time we're both teachers, and we thought, we don't have the know-how to do that. We don't have the time to do that. We don't have the money to do that. So that was just an idea that got stored, for later. And then when 2020 happened, COVID happened, teachers were sent home, students were sent home. And suddenly my husband and I had a lot of free time. We were teaching, but all we had to do was make videos. And we were certainly not teaching from 8 to 4, anything like that. So that's when we started educating ourselves. We started reading books, real estate books, listening to podcasts, all the things that you do. And it was about a year, I would say, of doing that before we finally got to a point where we said, okay, regular people can do this. We can do this. We could read books forever, listen to podcasts forever, but let's just jump in. And we bought our first apartment at that time. We bought a 5-plex and we used the Burr method on it, and it worked. It was like magical, and we were hooked. So that's kind of our story of getting in, and now we're in it to win it.
Oh my gosh. Well, you said a lot of things in that I think are important for our investors to hear. And one is you studied first before you took action. I know a lot of people that just go out and they buy something and they think, okay, why isn't this cash flowing? And they didn't do any education up front. And so we call those seminars, right? You're either going to pay
Right.
for them up front or you're going to get a savings on the back end. And
Right.
for a lot of people, unfortunately, those seminars cost them a lot of money. So, kudos to you for you and your husband, getting educated and looking for resources that helped you, and then buying a 5-plex. I mean, a lot of people start off with a single family home, but you went right into a 5-plex. So you mentioned the Burr strategy, which is it's something I'm very familiar with. And why don't you elaborate on what the Burr strategy is for our listeners?
Sure. So it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I think I got that right. The idea is you buy an asset, you buy, a building, and you put a little bit of work into it. Maybe your idea is that you want to raise the rents. That's always the idea with apartment investing. You want to raise that NOI, net operating income, and hopefully also reduce expenses if you're able to. And the new value that you've created is so much more than it was when you purchased it, that you can actually pull out your equity. So you can pull out a whole lot of money, maybe everything you put into it, and it will continue to cash flow. Your new payment, your new mortgage on the refinance might be a little bit more, but who cares? Because you just got all of your money back, and the apartment or the building is still giving you, it's still paying you every month, maybe $200 a door, maybe $300 a door. And you basically have no money into the deal. So you can reuse that capital into a new deal. And I would do that forever. I mean, why not?
Well, and that's what we call infinite returns. I mean, you've taken your money back out. You now have $0 in the deal. So everything that you're getting is really, it's the icing, right, on top of the cake. You have no more money in it. And so that's what we call good debt.
Yes.
And then leveraging. You're now leveraging the initial funds that you had put into that building. Now you have them back and you get to go rinse and repeat, which is the last R in the Burr strategy. So I know you're looking at more deals and you're trying to scale up and do something even bigger. So why don't you share with us, what are you looking for next?
Sure. So, we recently became limited partners in a syndication where, a lot of investors pool their funds together. And the limited partner side is where you're completely passive. It's an amazing thing because you literally just wire some money at the bank and you get a great return. You do have to do a little bit of work, vet the sponsor, make sure that the sponsor knows what they're doing and has some experience. And, vet the deal, make sure they weren't expecting interest rates to stay in the 3s forever or something like that. But besides that, I mean, it's very little work. So we did that just kind of as a little practice, you might say. And because it is a great return. But now what we want to do is we want to be on the other side of that. So we want to be the active sponsors on a syndication where we're the ones who find the deal. We're in touch with the broker. We're analyzing 100 deals to find one good one. And then we'll bring in the investors with us on, an apartment complex, maybe something 100 doors or more, something like that. And, we all take the journey together, and it's kind of a win-win for everyone. And that's kind of what we're going for next.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were really looking to scale up, and you actually took a passive position. A lot of people, when they get into multifamily and they have this big dream of taking on 100 doors, they're always saying, I'm going to save my cash for my own deal. And I can tell you that I was guilty of it. I hired a coach in the space and decided, okay, I'm going to be the guru and the go-to expert in my market. But unfortunately, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to make that dream come true. And unfortunately, I just never found it in my own marketplace. And rather than get distraught about it, the next best thing for me, like you, was to invest in somebody else's deal. And the beautiful thing about that for me, I'm curious if you had the exact same feeling, is I got a sense of confidence that I was invested in a deal now. I had skin in the game. And although I wasn't leading the entire syndication, I now had a peek behind the curtain to see how are the communications going to flow between me and the syndicator? How often do they communicate with me? What are they communicating? How do they go about communicating? And it's just learning those little fundamentals. So when I had my own deal, I knew exactly, okay, this is what I want to portray to my investors. This is the way I want to communicate with my investors. So I'm curious, did you have any sense of, oh my gosh, we're finally in the game? Or, tell me what it was like when you invested in somebody else's deal for the very first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you said, you do get to see behind the curtain. And this was the whole idea for us. We knew that we wanted to be the active syndicators. I mean, we knew that when we were going into to become limited partners. So really part of the reason we wanted to do it is so that we could tell our future investors that we had done this and that it's real. We wanted to experience what that was like and to be able to say, this was the process. It's as simple as it sounds. You literally just wire money. You kind of have to ask, you have to assess like what money do you have that's available that you can part with for a while.
Mhm.
And that's something I'm learning as I'm learning how to speak to my investors, that one of the things that you want them to watch out for is like, if you only have $50,000 in your bank account, or you have 52,000, don't invest 50 of it, make sure it's money that you are able to just let it sit here, let it grow, get small chunks of it, maybe at a time, maybe quarterly or whenever the distributions are paid. And then know that in 5 years, 7 years, sometimes even 10 years, you're going to get all of your capital back and then some. But that's a long time to wait.
Mhm.
That you have to have just the right type of investor who's in a situation where they can do that. So yeah, really, we just wanted to experience it. And the other thing, like I said earlier, I mean, it really is a great deal. Like it's not it's
Mhm.
not just like, oh, I better do this so that, I can say that I've gone through it. No, I mean, it's a great investment too. So the returns are great. And we were happy to do it for that reason too. Not just to see behind the curtain and to have the experience of doing it, but I think, it's like you can get a lot of times a 2x equity multiple, where in 5 years, I'm just using 5 years because it's kind of a standard. Um, you can double your money and actually get double your money back. That's not something you can do in the stock market,
Right.
especially right now or with
Yeah.
a bond. Um, so yeah, for us, it was twofold. It was the experience of doing it and really seeing what the process was like. And it was also just, it's a great
Mhm.
deal. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's why we did it.
I love that. Now you didn't put a dollar figure out there. How much how much do people, should they expect to put into a first syndication? I know that ours are typically 50,000 is the minimum.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me at an event just recently, what is the average investment? And I'll just be very honest with our audience here. It's typically 100,000, but the minimum to come in is 50. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah. Yeah. 50,000 is typically, I actually had looked at several syndicators deals. I was being sent a couple of them, and just kind of vetting a lot of these sponsors, and some of them I knew and some people I didn't know, and they were sending me their deals anyway and saying, hey, do you want to be a limited partner? I think I found that every single one of them said 50,000 was their minimum, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, that seems pretty standard.
Yeah, so I know for some of our syndications, they're typically all regulation 506B securities.
Yeah.
And that means it's open to friends and family. And if you're a referral from a friend or a family, one of the things we need to do is get to know you better. And one of the things I love that you're doing already, Hilary, is you're reaching out and letting your investors and who you plan to eventually hit up when you do find that perfect deal, you're already exposing them to what you're already doing. And for all of you syndicators or potential syndicators out there, if you're not already doing that, that was one of the pieces of advice somebody gave me early on. And, I kind of thought, oh, I don't want to be a capital raiser. But the reality is you're buying multifamily buildings. These buildings cost millions of dollars. And the reality is you have to go to your friends and family if you want to buy this. And that's reality. Unless you've got a tree producing money behind your backyard, in your backyard somewhere, you have to go to friends and family. The other alternative is the 506C, which is crowdfunding. But most people start off with doing 506Bs with a minimum investment of 50,000. I know on our syndications, when we get towards the end of a raise, we might lower that down to 25,000 for newer investors that don't have a lot of experience, and they've got some reservations, but they want to get, dip their toe in the water. And so we'll let people come in for 25,000. But like you, and I don't mean to take up the airtime here, but I know that you're making a lot of broker calls. You're calling a lot of lenders. You're doing a lot of work right now to establish yourself in the marketplace, but also to gain some credibility with mortgage lenders. And so I know doing that very first deal probably sets you up to now you can talk about, hey, I'm an investor in X amount of doors now. And here's what my team, and referencing a team, right? What we're looking for. How has your dialogue with your brokers and your lenders changed since you've now invested in a deal?
No, that's an amazing point. Yeah, I mean, I before investing in that limited partnership, I had only bought, small multifamily in York, Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and Lebanon, Pennsylvania as well, and didn't own a lot of doors, just a couple. And if you're trying to do a syndication, the brokers they're like sniffing you out. They want to see your experience. They want to see what you've done, and they don't have time to deal with somebody who's not really serious about going forward, who cannot close on a deal, who doesn't know what they're doing. They're so used to getting calls like this. And how do I know this? Because brokers literally tell me this when I call them. They say, we get calls like this all the time. So I've kind of, altered my script a little bit so that I don't get the eye roll anymore. But I mean, their time is limited, and they're trying to get it done too, and do what they need to do. So yes, that has absolutely helped. Not just in being able to say that I invested in, over 100 units, but also to be able to say that I have the experience, I have the connections with people who were the active investors in this deal, who I'm able to talk with them. I'm working with them. And like you said, that magical team word, I use that all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
saying my team and I, it's true too, it is my team and I, because we are in that deal together, even though our roles are different. And it's built my confidence. Just talking to brokers, I think I have the confidence to be able to say that I kind of know what this process is like.
Mhm.
And I understand what it takes to be an active sponsor, and I'm up for it. And I'm working with people who have done it.
Yeah.
So send me deals,
Right. Right. Right.
Yes, it's
There,
it's helped in a lot of ways.
that's awesome. I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to meet you. And for our audience, again, she used the word, I only have a fiveplex, and she throws it around like, it's nothing big. But for those of you that have never done a deal, a fiveplex is like, it's like the golden ticket, right? Oh my gosh. And it all starts with one step. I mean, that's real estate, and it's getting over that very first deal. And once you get over that very first deal, and it's just a lot of, consecutive small steps. It's making the phone calls to brokers, it's calling lenders, it's developing relationships with other investors and expanding your network. And I've seen so much growth from you in just a few months. And I know that I'm hoping that one day when you find the deal that you call me, and that we get to do a deal together as general partners on a deal. So
I would love it.
yeah, yeah. So with that, I know that you've got a website up and running, and you've got a phone number. How can people find you and reach out to you to learn more about you and where you're investing?
Sure. Our company name is Bright Sound Investments. Bright, Bright, Sound Investments with an S on the end. And I mean, we're on all the socials. We're on Instagram at bright_sound_investments. But if they wanted to get in touch with me directly, they could just email me, Hilary with one L, at brightsoundinvestments.com.
And I love your name choice. It's very fitting for a music teacher.
Yep, yep, yep.
It's perfect.
I
I
had
love
to
it.
I had to throw some music in there and just like had to find the perfect name that was like both music and real estate.
I love it. So one last question for you. If somebody's wanting to get started in real estate, what is the one thing you would recommend that can make the biggest difference?
It's hard to just choose one, Jennifer, but I guess I would say network, as if you had to choose one thing. You really can't get far in this game unless you're making connections with people. And that's on the investor side, and that's on the active side and on the passive side. So if you are wanting to buy even something small, you have to get in touch with brokers, lenders, maybe private money, maybe hard money lenders, and you have to educate yourself. And so there you would want to network with somebody who knows a little bit more about it than you do. So it's always getting in touch with people, taking people out to coffee if you can. And if there's an investor in your area who's doing what you want to be doing, take them out to coffee, for gosh sakes. I mean,
Right.
that's just too easy, and it's free education practically. So I would say network is the number one, but also within that is take action. That's the biggest thing I see when I go to a real estate meetup or something, and I'm hearing people tell we get to give like a 10-second commercial or something like that at my local meetup, where you get to tell everybody who you are and what you're doing, and I hear half the room say, "Oh, I'm just here to learn. I'm just here to learn. And I've been coming here for 3 years, but I'm just here to learn." And I think 3 years or 4 years or, whatever it is, you can get a deal within probably 90 days. It does not take that long to learn enough, meet enough people, and even attain the funds. Even if you have zero money in your bank account, you can buy a deal with other people's money in 90 days. I mean, it is not that hard. So I would have to say it's really a combination of the network and as Rod Khleif would say, take massive freaking action. You know,
Right.
that is so necessary to just go do it and move the needle a little bit every single day, and you will reach your goal.
Mhm. Great advice. So, in a nutshell, you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the first deal is always the hardest. And it takes the biggest leap of faith. But once you do it, I mean, it's mind boggling the freedom that comes from that first step and taking those actions. And if you're an introvert, I'm sure all of the advice she gave you just now is terrifying. The thought of networking, but you can network through LinkedIn. You can network. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can network. So you don't have to go meet face to face, but obviously that's the easiest way to build instant connections with people. But I loved your advice. And I think it's very appropriate. And it probably, I would tend to agree that networking is the best way to let people know what you're doing and a way that you can add value to their lives as well.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, I was that shy kid. Like I was the shyest kid in my class in elementary school. I remember my teacher calling me out one time and saying like, "Oh, Hillary, the quietest kid in the class, the only one who's standing the right way in line," or something like that. And I thought, I'm the shyest kid in the class, you know? But that's kind of my personality that I come from, but
Yeah.
it was many years of kind of putting myself out of my comfort zone, like you said,
Yeah.
that you realize people are just like me. They're people. It's okay to talk to people.
Right.
They're not
Right.
that scary. Yep. You got to make connections. You have to just go do it.
Yeah. Great advice. Just go do it, audience. So thank you for your time today. We appreciate you being on here and good luck. I know that you're going to soar with all the other Eagles out there that are making things happen. And I hope to be a part of it.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone. And good luck to all of you. Make it happen.